Another feat for Paige Bueckers. Joins Caitlin Clark as the second rookie in WNBA history to record 500 or more points, 150 or more assists, 100 or more rebounds, and 50 or more steals in a season. Hashtag welcome to the W. There was never a doubt. I think everybody knew it from the outset. There was a chance for Paige Bueckers to be special. We knew that from the first day she stepped on campus at University of Connecticut. She has continued that through her WNBA rise. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz hanging out, Yahoo Sports Daily. The question is, who's having the better rookie season? We're allowed to ask these things, Caroline. I just have to say it loud. We all understand the stardom that is associated with Caitlin Clark. But at some point right now, what we're looking at this year from Paige raises the question, who's having the better rookie season? Was it Caitlin last year, or is it Paige this year?
It's a fun and fascinating question. And I think the fact that we can even have a fair and justified conversation about this proves that the league is in very good hands with some of its young talent, because it felt like Caitlin's rookie season was larger than life. That's because it was, for so many intents and purposes. But their stats, as you can see it right there in that graphic, they are eerily similar. Caitlin in her rookie year averaged 19 points a game. Right now, Paige is averaging 18.9. Caitlin was averaging 5.7 rebounds, Paige at 3.8 and 5.3 assists, where Caitlin was averaging 8.4. Their stats are so incredibly similar. And I think that you also have to weigh impact, that Caitlin Clark had a massive impact on the sports world, on the WNBA. The reason why, a large reason why the TV contracts are going up, a large reason why the WNBA has had more attendees this year than any other season in its history is because of the framework that Caitlin Clark laid, that she is demanding eyes on this sport. So I think impact, you have to say Caitlin Clark has had an immeasurable impact on this league, but Paige is following very close behind her. So who is having a better rookie season? I think just by the impact that Caitlin Clark had on sports, you have to say her. But Paige is right there, statistically, impact-wise, attention-wise. Paige did something that no other rookie in the history of the WNBA has done. That's dropped 44 in a single game, including Caitlin Clark. She never has done that. So I think that you have to go Caitlin by a slim margin. But again, I go back to the fact that we can have this conversation means that it's that Paige has had a massive, massive impact.
Look, I'll admit my bias to this. I've seen Paige in person a bunch of times, living not that far from University of Connecticut, right? And obviously you live in this area. Paige has made a huge impact to the entire basketball community around here, which is tough to do from a Connecticut team that has had so many wild, amazing, huge names come through the program. But when you want to talk about which rookie season is more impressive, the fact is, if Paige walks into a Starbucks in most places, there'll be some people that know her, and there'll be some people look over and say, she must be somebody. It's not Caitlin. There's so much pressure and eyeballs and so much conversation on Caitlin from the minute she walked into the room, that the fact that Paige has been able to do this is really incredible. But she didn't do it with the same level of pressure that has been on Caitlin from the minute she stepped into the league. There have been people expecting Caitlin's greatness no matter what it was accomplished. It wasn't going to be enough. There's people that have been rooting for the downfall of Caitlin from the minute she stepped into the league. It just feels like there's been a conversation around Caitlin everywhere she goes, everything she does, and in every way that she does it. And she's not just able to ever just be a human being. She's Caitlin Clark and everything that she does. That creates more pressure. So for me to live up to those expectations is more impressive. And what becomes funny is that I actually don't see, because this is the next part of the conversation. Are we turning into the modern Larry versus Magic, right? Like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, which is the natural conversation from two players that are so incredibly powerful to the league. But I would argue that we already have that. Look, no matter what anybody wants to say or think one way or the other, Caitlin versus Angel has become Magic versus Larry. And it's almost like we'll end up with this Magic versus Larry is over here, and that's Caitlin versus Angel. And then Paige is over here ready to be Michael, living in their own sort of world. And that's, I think that's fair. The rivalry already exists. Love it, hate it, leave it, doesn't matter. Angel versus Caitlin is the rivalry that will fuel the WNBA for the next 5 years.
And it's a great rivalry. And I think the WNBA has been trying to embrace more and more rivalries. They even do rivalry week. And that's when, the Fever and the Sky played each other. Unfortunately, neither Caitlin nor Angel played in that game. They were both dealing with injuries. But the WNBA wants to emphasize these rivalries. The W understands that sports fans love rivalries. So I think that is where it is. It goes back to college. But let's not forget, Iowa knocked out Paige's UConn team in the Final Four. That's when I went on to play South Carolina in the national championship game, or whichever years that was. But there is a college rivalry that goes back. It's just the fact that Caitlin and Paige weren't in the same draft class, I think makes it feel a little bit different. And that in Paige's rookie year, Caitlin has been injured for a significant portion of it. So those natural rivalries that can continue on the court can't, because Caitlin has been hurt. And I know that we're talking about Paige and Caitlin in the same generation, and we're talking about LeBron and Michael Jordan in completely different generations, but I feel like this rivalry will be more like LeBron and Michael in the GOAT conversation. Right now, the GOAT in the WNBA, you can talk about Sue Bird, you can talk about Diana Taurasi, but I think we're talking about Caitlin and Paige as who is the modern day GOAT, and it will develop into that more than it is like a Larry Magic kind of going at it, kind of like, always beefing in the media conversation. That is Caitlin versus Angel. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing for the sport. Beefing on the court is good for the W. Rivalries are good for the W. Like, this is not a tea party. These are competitors. These are professional athletes. And it's a good thing when they're going at each other, when these rivalries continue to blossom.
And by the way, it's a good thing when you have multiple superstars. Like, to me, the Caitlin injury is part of why we paid attention to Paige. If we're being honest, like, Caitlin sucks a lot of the energy out of the room.
Well,
because
I'll push
it's such
back
a
on that a
point.
little bit. We would have paid attention to Paige no matter what. She was the number one overall pick. Paige Bueckers has been, a national phenomenon, even going back to when she was in high school. And that kind of dissipated a little bit when she missed some time at UConn. But Paige Bueckers still, she's not Caitlin Clark level celebrity, but we still would have been paying attention to Paige Bueckers no matter what.
I mean, my pushback to that is A'ja Wilson. Like, A'ja Wilson has clearly been Nafisa Collier. Like, there are players right now in the W that are every bit as worthy of conversation as Caitlin ever is. But when Caitlin's on the court, we don't really talk about, like, what else does A'ja have to do other than continue to win MVPs and be on one of, if not the best team, year in and year out? And we still don't sit down and talk about A'ja ever the way we talk about Caitlin Clark. Like, I'm with you. I understand that we would have paid some attention to Paige, but honestly, like, ESPN, all of us, like, we know who gets the clicks. Like, at the end of the day, if there's an opportunity to talk about Caitlin, there's an opportunity to talk about Caitlin. Like, if I'm being fully transparent here, would the world be as excited about this conversation if it was who's better, A'ja Wilson or Paige? Right? No, we put Caitlin in the conversation because that's what moves. Like, we all pay attention to everything that Caitlin does. So to me, having Caitlin not on the court does create, at least because there is so much more conversation about the sport happening today than there was a year ago or 3 years ago, it creates the opportunity for other superstars to get a little bit more space, a little bit more credit, a little bit more love. And that's enough to take somebody that I think is a great player and make them a great platform.
And I would even add that onto, Paige's rookie season that she still is writing is, yes, Caitlin Clark did it with all of the pressure in the world, but Paige is doing it in Caitlin's shadow. That we're doing it right now. We are comparing Paige Bueckers to Caitlin Clark's rookie season. And look, it's fair. It's okay for us to do this. We are allowed to do this. But there is going to be a very large Caitlin Clark-sized shadow looming over every single number one overall pick or, phenom that's coming into the W. You look at all of the young talent that'll be coming into the W over the next couple of years. Juju Watkins is one that comes to mind, that we're always going to be comparing them to Caitlin, whereas Caitlin didn't have that kind of expectation. We were comparing Caitlin to stars of the past, to stars that, made their rookie debuts a couple of decades before, like I said, a Sue Bird or a Diana Taurasi. So the fact that Caitlin is still so young and still has yet to reach the peak of her WNBA career, I think creates even more pressure for Paige Bueckers and some of these young stars coming in. But look, there's a lot of stars in the WNBA that we do not talk enough about. A'ja Wilson is one of them. A'ja Wilson's Las Vegas Aces are currently on a 12-game win streak. The Las Vegas Aces have absolutely skyrocketed up into the standings, and it looks like they might secure that very coveted number 2 overall spot in the WNBA standings. Nafisa Collier has been in the MVP conversation all season long. Alyssa Thomas should be in the MVP discussion. I mean, Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones and Emma Mieseman, all of those stars in New York. Like, yes, those are all players that we probably should be talking about, but it is Caitlin Clark that dominates the conversation. And I don't think there's anything wrong with Caitlin Clark dominating the conversation, because even when she doesn't play, it's a story. And attention is attention. Clicks are clicks. People care about what they care about.
I mean, to that end, and that's why I think the 80s era of NBA basketball is a good comp to what's happening in the W right now. It wasn't just about Magic and Larry. It was also about the ascension of Michael and Charles Barkley and Patrick Ewing. And you ended up with these staples that will forever be remembered for what they brought to that era in personality and in greatness. And that's, I think, the better comp. Everybody wants to make the league, the W, particularly about Caitlin versus. And to me, it's more about over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, how many other superstars are going to be coming in. And that, Caroline, is why I think we're at that baseline of 80s popularity and a massive growth that's about to happen.
It is. I mean, it's already happened. It just feels like it's just continuing to bubble up more and more and more, that we had that start. We have that thing that it felt like the sports world could kind of latch onto in Caitlin Clark, that opens the door to all of the other, rivalries and competition that's happening in the W, and the amount of young stars that have yet to come into this league that are only going to continue upon building upon the foundation that has already been built.